I'm going to talk a little bit about something in prophecy that we have touched upon before, of course, but I want to emphasize and highlight this morning. This morning, I want to entitle my presentation Philadelphia's Open Door. Now, in preface to what I want to share, I want to repeat something I've been saying over and over. I find myself, and I think most of us in the room find ourselves in a position where we're kind of almost caught between two worlds. I mean that on the one hand, most of us have a background in Seventh-day Adventism. And on the other hand, most of us, if not all of us, have found ourselves disassociated from or disfellowshipped or stepping away from that denomination. I think we're in a kind of unique position because I find that those people who have stepped away from the false teachings that exist in Adventism today, they have taken one of two positions. The majority of them have maintained their identity with Adventism, but they have just maybe stepped away from something like the doctrine of the Godhead or some other thing, but they still are very much locked in to the ideas that are the structure of Seventh-day Adventism. Some others, on the other hand, have gone extremely in the other direction. They've come to the place where they reject anything to do with Adventism. I know some of them who have even gone to believe in Sunday observance. Some of them have gone to believe in, I've even seen at least one person who believes in eternal burning hell. And I find that to be really astonishing and hard to believe, but I do know of such a person. So I often find myself in a position where somebody says, who are you? And some people say, I'm no longer an Adventist. I don't identify that way. And I know that as human beings, we're always trying to find our place. Are we evangelicals? To me, that is jumping from the frying pan into the fire. So where do we stand? And I believe that a part of the process we are going through is finding a way to catch the correct balance, that we abandon what is bad and we embrace what is good with all our hearts without giving ourselves any label. That's what I think, and that's what I believe most of us agree with. This is kind of like a preamble to what I want to say today, because looking at this subject, Philadelphia's open door, I find myself, as I'm looking at the topic, I find myself thinking that the Adventists, the early Adventists, they were really looking at their Bible and they were really coming up with some good conclusions. But then as I go deeper into the book of Revelation, I'm led to think that, yes, but they got locked into some bad ideas that messed them up along the way. And it causes me a bit of a conflict, because I'm just thinking, how far do I embrace these people? But then, as I said, I've come to conclude that, the best thing is just to say what the Bible says and leave the labels alone. One of the things I notice with a lot of the people who have stepped away from Adventism is that their ideas of prophecy become really strange and way out. Either they abandon the subject of prophecy altogether, or they start embracing some very strange ideas. And this morning, as we look at the topic of Philadelphia's open door, what I would like us to do is to be very critical. I don't often encourage you to be that way, but I want you to be critical, because when we are dealing with a topic that is it may be controversial, it is good that we examine it with a fine-tooth comb. We look at all the possibilities of how we can be wrong. This way, our conclusions can be stronger. When we have examined all the negatives, when we finally come to our final conclusion, we can be sure that we are on a fairly firm platform, because we have looked at all the possibilities that would stand against us. So anyway, I'm going to go to the Bible, and of course we're going to Revelation chapter 3, which is where we find a message to the Laodicean church. Not the Laodicea. The Adventism is still stuck in my head. The Philadelphian church. Now I don't know that there is any other group of people in the world who are concerned about, who is concerned about interpreting these messages, apart from those who come from an Adventist background. You will see why it is hard for me to stop mentioning Adventism. It's hard. I know there are some people who don't like me to use the word Adventist at all in my presentations. I can kind of understand why, because I want our messages to be universal. I don't want it to be locked inside the box of a denomination. But at the same time, I want to be very honest. I want to give credit where credit is due. If I learn something from Brother John, I don't want to come up here and pretend that it is my discovery. I want to say, I learned this from Brother John, or Brother John helped me on this journey. So I feel very acutely when I'm talking about something. If I learn it from somebody else, or from some group, or from Adventism, I want to give credit. Okay? There's a friend of mine who loves to say that when he threw away Adventism, he threw away the baby and the bath water, and the bathtub as well. All right? But I'm not going to be that stupid. I'm going to throw away what doesn't make sense, and where it makes sense, I'm going to embrace it, and I'm going to give credit, okay? Because I believe that in doing this, we can get a better idea of how God has worked in the past and how He's likely to work in the present and in the future. One of the misconceptions I think people have is that they embrace groups, and so they say the Baptists brought us water baptism, so everything the Baptists teach is correct. Or the Apostolic Church was the greatest Spirit-filled church, so everything that they did and taught was perfect. I've discovered it wasn't like that. And because God might have spoken through Adventism at one point, everything about Adventism is right. This is the cult mentality, the clique mentality, where people believe that when I've found somewhere that I can find some truth, I take in everything, and I suppose when I'm saying this, I need to point the finger at us as well. I believe we're in a fellowship where we are justified in believing that God has been blessing us with some understanding, but at the same time, what we must embrace is the truth that we are learning, and not become overly fixated on the group. I love the fellowship and I love the people who are a part of it, yes, but I should not put my dependence on the fact that because I'm here, I'm safe. No, that's the mentality that has destroyed people over the ages. I'm not safe because I'm here. I'm safe because I'm taking each thing that the Lord is showing me and I'm making it my own. I am locked in to the truth. I'm not locked into a human institution. And that may be the point I really want to make. So anyway, Philadelphia's open door. We go to Revelation 3. Maybe I'll just read through the entire Philadelphia message and then we'll go back and dissect it, all right? So we'll have a little bit of reading at the beginning, and sometimes that can be boring, but let's go through. It's just about 5 verses. It says, "Unto the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, these things saith he that is holy and true, and he that is true. He that hath the key of David, he that openeth and no man shutteth, and shutteth and no man openeth. I know thy works. Behold, I have set before thee an open door, and no man can shut it, for thou hast a little strength, and hast kept my word, and hast not denied my name. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews, and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. Because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world, to try them that dwell upon the earth. Behold, I come quickly. Hold that fast which thou hast, that no man take thy crown. Him that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go no more out. And I will write upon him the name of my God, and the name of the city of my God, which is New Jerusalem, which cometh down out of heaven from my God, and I will write upon him my new name. All right, now, before we even look at the message in detail, let me just give a little background that I would like us to consider. This is one of the messages to the 7 churches at the beginning of the book of Revelation. These 7 messages are controversial in that people are always talking, debating about them, and not quite sure how to interpret them. There were 7 literal churches that existed in the time when John wrote the book of Revelation. There were 7 churches that existed in Asia Minor, when John wrote the book of Revelation. And John was told to write the book of Revelation and to send it to the 7 churches. So there are those who say these messages have no application to us. They really apply to the church of Philadelphia, which existed at that time, way back when John was writing the book. And of course, those who say this, they believe that the book of Revelation applied to people back in those days. They don't think it has anything to do with us today. But others who believe that Revelation has something to do with us today, they say, well, although there were 7 churches, what God did, God gave 7 messages, and he used these 7 churches as a pattern, as a kind of parable in sending his message to the church at the end of time. Now, here's what I want to say. I want us all to consider. The message to Philadelphia is very clearly connected to the rest of the book of Revelation, and we will see this. Now, there is a little bit of a challenge in how we understand these churches, and I'm not going to go into it in detail this morning. But it is believed that there are 7 of these churches: Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamos, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea. Philadelphia is the second to the last church. There are those who say the last church is Laodicea, and so therefore God's people in the last days belong to the Laodicean church. I don't believe this is true. I believe that there are about 4 of these churches that exist in the end of time, and that the one that God identifies specifically as having some special place is the Philadelphia church. Now let us see if we can understand why that is so. So we're going to go back to verse 7. I'm going to start now. I'm just going to go through the passage piece by piece, and let's see what we can understand. And to the angel or the messenger, the word angel means messenger. To the messenger of the church in Philadelphia, write. So there's a message being given to the people who are represented by this church, and we will see who those are. These things saith he that is holy, he that is true. Now, there is an important message in the way Jesus describes himself. We can learn lessons from it. It says, first of all, he is holy. It says he is true. And the emphasis here on him being true means that he's faithful and we can trust what he says. But the point I want to emphasize now is the last part of that verse. It says, he that had the key of David. What is the key of David? Sometimes we read over these verses and you don't take the time to stop and consider. But there's a reason why he mentions not just the key, but he mentions the key of David. And why does he say the key of David? It's because a key is something that you use to open a door. It's what you use to control a room. But the key of David, because David was promised by God that he would sit upon the kingdom of Israel forever. And when God said David would do it, he meant that David's seed or David's descendant. I think we can actually find, let me see if I can take the time to look at it. There's a verse in Luke chapter 1 where we actually have, let's see, Luke chapter 1. I think it's verse 50 something, maybe 51. No, maybe 31. Let me see how my memory is doing. It's actually 32. All right, not too bad. It says, referring to Jesus, it says, he shall be great and shall be called the Son of the Highest. He was called the Son of the Highest the second time when he was born as a man. And the Lord God shall give unto him the throne of his father David. And he shall reign, he shall rule over the house of Jacob forever. And of his kingdom there shall be no end. Let's not be mistaken. Jesus is not to be king of the universe forever. He will reign and then give the kingdom back to God the Father, the kingdom of the universe. But where the house of Jacob is concerned, where Israel is concerned, Jesus will be our king forever. He will sit upon the throne of David forever. And that is why in this message to Philadelphia, it says he has the key of David, and the key of David is the key to the kingdom. Jesus is the one who controls the kingdom, and he is able to do certain things where the kingdom is concerned because he has the key. This involves the message to Philadelphia. And this is one of the places where I believe that, those early Adventists, they kind of had something. They kind of had something. Their minds were being directed in a way, because when I look at the passage, I can't come to any other conclusion than the conclusion they came to. Look at what it says. He that openeth and no man shutteth, and shutteth and no man openeth. It is speaking here of Jesus' ability to open certain aspects of the kingdom and shut certain aspects of the kingdom. Now, I know that those early Adventists, they misinterpreted the opening and the shutting. They preached about the shut door and the open door. But in terms of how they understood the idea, I think they were right. It refers to a door to a certain kind of opportunity. Jesus is able to open the door to a certain kind of opportunity, and he's able to close the door to another kind of opportunity where the kingdom is concerned. And when he opens a door, nobody can shut it. He's Lord of the kingdom, and he has the key of David, which means that he rules and is master in the kingdom. Nobody can prevent what is to happen when he opens a certain door. And nobody can overrule when he closes a certain door. He's speaking about the kingdom. If we want to go back to the very beginning of the kingdom, we can see where this is applicable. Jesus said that of those who were born of women, there was no greater than John the Baptist. But the least in the kingdom was greater than he. When Jesus came, Jesus opened the door to the kingdom. And those who were born before the time of Christ, they had no access to the kingdom up to that point. It was only when he opened the door to the kingdom that men had access to the kingdom. And there he displayed his authority, that he can open and nobody can shut, and he shuts and nobody can open. But here now I believe he's speaking of something else, because now he's speaking in the context of the book of Revelation, and we're going to see what that means. So in verse 8, he says, I know your works. Behold, I have set before thee an open door, and no man can shut it. For thou hast a little strength, and hast kept my word, and hast not denied my name. Look at what he says. I love how the Bible is so beautiful in its simplicity. Jesus simply says, I know your works. What does that have to do with anything? I know that for you and me, brothers and sisters, we are aware that our works are like filthy rags. Our works mean nothing. We are not saved by works. We are saved by grace through faith. But in spite of this, Jesus says, I know your works. Look here. I'm aware of the things you have been doing. I'm aware of how you have been trying to please me. I'm aware of how you have been trying to share my truth with other people. It does not save you. But, as I was praying this morning, I said, we appreciate you, Father. But look what? We know you appreciate us. We know you appreciate us. Don't you see the beauty of this? Our God in heaven, our Savior Jesus Christ, they appreciate us. The little that you try to do and the way you fail and you hardly succeed sometimes, He appreciates it. This means so much to me because for so much of my life, He was the God of perfection, and He was waiting there with His measuring stick, and I made 5%, and He laughed in my face and said, you have a long way to go. Go back and try again. And then I tried again, and I got to maybe 15% by dint of hard work. And He said, one of these days, you might make it. My concept of God was so very wrong, as is the concept of so many Christians. I never understood the grace of a Father who says, 1%, my son, you are trying. I love this. I appreciate you. I'm with you in this. We are going to make it. And even if we don't make it to 100%, it is enough for me if you just make 0.5%. So Jesus says, I know your works. And what are the works that He sees? The works are, He sees you have a little strength. He doesn't say you have a lot of strength. He says you have a little strength. So brothers and sisters, the little weak ones among us, take heart and take courage. If you think you are weak and you think you're struggling along, take note that Jesus says you have a little strength. He's not misguided or deceived about your condition. He says you have a little strength. And it pleases Him because He says, I know your works. Okay. It's interesting that with Laodicea says, I am rich and increased with goods. And Jesus says, you don't know that you are wretched and miserable and poor and blind and naked. But here He says to Philadelphia, I'm aware of what you are. And what I can see is that you have a little strength. You have kept my word and you have not denied my name. I could dig into this and I could find many meanings. All right. I think one of the things that we can see here is that when He says, you have not denied my name, the name of a person in the Bible refers primarily to the person's character. I'm not with those people who say that the name here refers to the way you pronounce the name, Yeshua or Yeshua, or however you pronounce it. This is not what He's talking about at all. I'm not saying that may not have a place in terms of a person's personal attitude, but it's not what Jesus is talking about. He's talking about His character. Here are some people who understand the character of Christ and they have not denied it. They have been open and forthright in presenting His character and representing it. And He says, you have kept my word. You have a little strength. And these are the things that He knows about this church. These are the things He knows about these people. And because of this, look at what He says. I have set before you an open door and no man can shut it. One of the things that I know brings us a great deal of happiness, it brings me a great deal of happiness, is knowing that my works have nothing to do with my salvation. I'm very happy because of this, because if I were to be judged by my works, I probably would not make it. But my works have nothing to do with my salvation. But there are certain privileges. There are certain opportunities that come, and I believe this very much, and they have to do with our works. And when I say works, I don't want to be misrepresented. I mean our works in terms of what Jesus says here. You have a little strength. You have kept my word. You have not denied my name. Those are the works He's talking about. I know that works have something to do with our relationship with Christ in this world, and how he's able to use us and the opportunities that he's able to give us. Because he says, look here, if a man love me, he will keep my word. All right? And my Father will love him, and we will come to him and make our home with him. So don't think that our behavior and how we approach the Lord has nothing to do with our experience. It is true that some will enter the kingdom, some will step upon the streets of glory like culprits barely pardoned, to borrow a phrase from somebody. Culprits barely pardoned. But some will be more victorious, because some have embraced the way of Christ better than some, more completely than some. And some people, it may be enough for you to just barely creep in by the skin of your teeth. For some people, it will be, I want to enter heaven as a conqueror. I want to know that I not only was saved by Christ, but that I served him. I want to know that I gave him my heart and everything that I have to offer. Because some are moved by the thought, how can I make a lesser sacrifice when Jesus gave his all? Yeah, so I believe that the message to Philadelphia is speaking here in the context of people who are focused on a deeper experience. I think so. It's not talking about simply salvation. So when Jesus says, I have set before you an open door, and nobody can shut it, it means that whatever Jesus has to give to the Philadelphia church, nobody is going to be able to take it away. And I say this because I know that the experience of the apostolic church was removed. It was taken away. Where's the apostolic church today? Where is the fervor and the zeal and the fire and the miracles that we saw in the apostolic church? It was shut down by the dark ages. It was taken away by apostasy. But Jesus says to Philadelphia, what I have for you, this open door I put before you, nobody can shut it. Nobody will take it away again. It will never be closed. And this is because Philadelphia is an end-time church. And this experience is not to die away before Jesus comes again. Now, what kind of door are we talking about? Let me just look quickly at a statement that Paul made in 1 Corinthians 16, where he mentions a door. It gives us an idea. In verses 8 and 9, Paul says, but I will tarry at Ephesus until Pentecost. For a great door and effectual is opened unto me, and there are many adversaries. This is the part. When Paul says a great door is open unto me, obviously he's not talking about the door to the synagogue or the door to the temple or anything. He's talking about a door of opportunity. What he means when he says a door has been opened for me, he means that there's an opportunity presented before me. I think he was talking about an opportunity to preach the gospel, to carry on his work of evangelism. But the point I'm making is that when we talk about a door being open, God is referring to a door of opportunity, a door to an experience. I put an open door before you. So God is saying to those of us, if we can identify with this church of Philadelphia, and I'm going to show you why we do identify with Philadelphia. I'm going to show you why. But if we can and we do identify with Philadelphia, God is saying, I have put an opportunity before you, clearly an opportunity that was not there before. I have opened the door. Jesus says, I have opened the door. Something is available to you that was not available before. And nobody can take this opportunity away from you. Now, along with this opportunity, look at what comes along with it. I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. You have to think that this is God trying to communicate. These are not words from a children's storybook. It's God trying to communicate, and he's trying to communicate to you and me. God is trying to say something. it behoves us to listen to what he's saying and make sure that we can understand the message. God says there are people around Philadelphia. There are people who live at the same time as Philadelphia who say they are Jews. And when he says Jews, I don't think he means the Ashkenazi or those people who live down in Palestine or wherever. He's talking about people who claim to be God's people in a spiritual sense. They claim to be spiritual Jews. And he says they are not, but they do lie. They are liars. But they make the claim that they are God's people. I'm not going to put my fingers on anybody. You can apply this however you think you can apply it. But what I want to say is that at the time of the Philadelphia church, there are people who are making the strong claim that they are God's special people, just like the Jews were. When God says, Jesus says, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan. That's very strong language. And how does Jesus make them of the synagogue of Satan? I know Jesus never turns anybody into an evil entity. How does he make them? Why does he say, I will make them? Why doesn't he say, they belong to the synagogue or they have made themselves? He says, I will make them. I think what he means is, I will make their identity clear. I will make it clear. I will make it visible that they belong to Satan's synagogue and they are not really God's people. I think that's what he means. And he goes on to say, I will make them to come and worship before your feet and to know that I have loved you. I'm not sure if we should take this literally, to say that people are going to come and actually fall down before our feet. I'm thinking that maybe it's not literal. I'm not going to argue about it, all right? I know there are some of us who might have reason to think it is literal, some of us who might not. I'm just thinking that it's a figure of speech, meaning that these people will come to the place where they acknowledge that they have been fighting against the truth. And that those of us who have taken a stand for his name and his word, they'll be compelled to acknowledge that we were really standing for God and for his truth. Okay, that's my interpretation. And I could be wrong, but that's what I think. Okay. Now we come to verse 10. Or even before we come to verse 10, I want to try to identify this open door first of all. Let's look again at the fact that Jesus says there's an open door. Now, where are we? We're in the book of Revelation. Now, in Revelation, there is only one other place that we can find any mention of an open door. And because we are in the book of Revelation, we would be kind of foolish if we don't take note of that other place. And you should all understand, I'm speaking of Revelation 4 and verse 1. Look at what it says. After this I looked, and behold, a door was opened. There you see the open door. A door was opened in heaven. And the first voice which I heard was as it were of a trumpet talking with me, which said, come up hither, come up here, and I will show you things which must be hereafter or after this. So I'm very strongly persuaded that this open door that Jesus puts before Philadelphia is the door that John sees opened in heaven. Now remember what we said is that we're talking about a door to an opportunity. Now when people study the book of Revelation, they don't have this kind of background in their minds. They are just thinking about prophetic predictions for the future. They don't see that God is trying to share something that is to impact upon our personal experience and prepare us for what is coming upon the earth. Now, what God is saying is that this vision that he gives of the door open in heaven, it's taking us into something that happens in heaven, which is to have a great impact upon the experience of God's people on earth. This is not about things happening in heaven. It's about things in heaven that impact God's people upon earth. This is what Revelation is about. This open door that John is taking into heaven. God is not just satisfying our curiosity about heaven. He's not trying to make us know that in heaven there are four living creatures with the head of a lion, a man, an eagle, and an ox. No, no, no. It's not a vision to give us the geography of heaven. It's a vision to say something is to happen in heaven in the future to the time of John. And when it happens, it is to impact the church upon earth in a great way. And so God says to Philadelphia, I have put before you this open door. If you can understand what is happening in Revelation chapter 4, if you can understand it, and if you can understand and relate to it properly, you will have this open door experience. That's what he's saying. It's events that are related to the earth, and it's events that are future to the time of John. Now, notice what it says about the Philadelphians in verse 10. Because you have kept the word of my patience. And this phrase, the word of my patience, it is better understood to mean because you have kept my word to endure. Okay, let me just quickly go to a passage that kind of highlights what I'm saying. In Matthew chapter 24, I think it is, look at what Jesus says. In verse 12, and because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall grow cold, shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. So Jesus talks about enduring unto the end. And that's what he's saying here in verse 10 of Revelation 3. Because you have kept my word, my counsel to endure, to persevere. So there's something that he's highlighting here, and it's the patience of the saints. It's the perseverance of God's people who have stuck with him in spite of what they have gone through, in spite of what they will be going through. And he says, because of this, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth. There is so much that is involved in this statement. First of all, is his promise to keep. All right, let me just quickly bring up. I don't think most of us will be able to see this because it's small. I don't want to change my view. But here's the Greek word for keep. It's 5083, G5083 in the Strong's Dictionary. And what it says is that it's from the word tereo. It means to guard from loss or injury. The first definition, it means to guard from loss or injury. Let me see if I can just bring that up where we all can read it. All right, I can do that. I probably don't need to do it. You probably all accept what I say without question, but I kind of like to know that I put all the evidence up there. This is a Greek 5083 from Tereo, to guard from loss or injury. So when Jesus says, I will keep you from the hour of temptation, what he's actually saying, I'm going to guard you. I'm going to guard you. It does not mean I'm going to prevent you from going through it. The reason I'm saying this is because the people who believe in the rapture theory, they say that it means that Jesus is going to keep you away. He's going to catch away the church. The church is going to be gone because Jesus is going to rapture the church away. So when he says, I will keep you, it really means I'm going to take you out of the world so you don't actually pass through the hour of temptation. But the proper meaning is that Jesus is saying, I will keep you during, I will preserve you during this hour of temptation. And what is the hour of temptation? It will come upon the entire planet, all the world, to try or to test or to prove those who dwell upon the earth. This is why whenever anybody talks about the final crisis, a lot of times people look at the mark of the beast crisis, which I believe to be the key crisis in the book of Revelation. I believe this is what this is speaking about, mark of the beast crisis. And Jesus says, not that I'm going to keep you away from it, but I will keep you during this hour of testing, this hour of trial. And he tells you why he allows it. It comes upon all the earth to try or to test or to prove. Christ already knows what is in each one of his brothers and sisters. The faces I can see and the faces that I can't see. He knows you. He knows what you are able to deal with and what you are not able to deal with. And as a matter of fact, if the truth be told, Jesus knows that none of us can endure that time of testing. He knows we can't. But you know what he knows? He knows those who will hang on to him and those who will never let him go. And he knows that those who are in that condition, when the temptation comes, he will endure it for them. That's what he's confident about. He knows that we will not fall because we won't let him go. Those who think they are strong are in the greatest danger because none of us can endure what is coming. You can't even take tribulation today, much more when the great hour of temptation comes. But Jesus knows those who know him. He knows those who know him. And he knows that those who know him, they will cling to him. And so they will be able to endure because he will work in them to will and to do of his good pleasure. So the test that comes upon the whole world is to demonstrate and to prove who truly know the Lord and who are only professors. Those who say, I know him, but they don't know him, as it says in another place, the shame of your nakedness will appear. The shame of your nakedness will appear. Those who know the Lord, you're already safe. You're already safe. So Jesus says that there's a purpose why he's allowing this hour of temptation to come. Now, I'm going to go straight to a verse in Revelation 14, which clarifies who is this Philadelphian church. Look at what it says. In Revelation 7, reading from verse 13. As a matter of fact, let me go back to about verse 8. After this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. Let's just look at this descriptor. Clothed with white robes and having palms in their hands. So we're talking about the people who are wearing white robes. And they, it doesn't say they, it's understood, they cried with a loud voice, saying, Salvation to our God, which sitteth upon the throne, and unto the Lamb. One thing I'll tell you about these people. They are not confused about who God is. They don't think God is a trinity. They don't think God is a trio. They don't think God is a triune entity. They know that that our God is the one which sitteth upon the throne. And they know that he's different from the Lamb, who is the Son of this God. Even in Revelation, the truth is very clear. These are the people. And so it's these people of whom it says, one of the elders answered, saying unto me, what are these which are arrayed in white robes? And where did they come from? Whence came they? And I said unto him, Sir, thou knowest. And he said to me, these are they which have come out of great tribulation. Now let me just switch the version a little bit to show you the missing word, okay? I'm switching to the NASB. These are the ones which came out of the great tribulation. It's not just that they have come out of great tribulation. They have come out of the great tribulation. They have come out of this hour of temptation which God allows to come upon the whole world. These are the ones who have come through this experience and they have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Not just the NASB, the NIV says the Great Tribulation. The World English Bible says the Great Tribulation. The New English Translation says the Great Tribulation. Every version says the Great Tribulation, because the King James Version also has the word the in it, but the translators they made a mistake. Just sometimes they make a little mistake like that, because the word for the in the Greek is just a little notation mark. It's like an apostrophe, and maybe they missed it, but it's there in the Greek text from which we get the King James Version. So it should have read, they have come out of the Great Tribulation. These are not people from all ages. That's what I'm trying to say. These are not people like from the days of Noah and Adam, or from the days of the apostles. These are people who live at a particular point in time, down at the end of time, when we have the experience which is called the Great Tribulation. It's a particular tribulation that they have passed through. So these are not people from all ages. These are God's end time church. And in fact, when you go to the beginning of the chapter, you find out who these people are. It says, I heard the number of them which were sealed, and they were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. Even though they are described as a great crowd, a great multitude that nobody could number, it's the same 144,000. And if you don't understand that contradiction, if it seems to be a contradiction, I would invite you to go and look at our series on the book of Revelation. Somebody will give you the link, somebody will put it in the chat if anybody wants to look at that, because the 144,000 and the great multitude is the same group of people. They are just described in two different ways for a particular purpose. But anyway, this is what chapter 7 is about. And these are the people who have come out of the great tribulation. And these are the people of whom the Lord says, I will keep you during this hour of temptation, which I will allow to come upon all the earth to try them that dwell upon the earth. So, Philadelphia is promised. In Revelation 3:11, it is promised that, behold, I come quickly. The only people you can say this to is a people, or are people, who will experience the event. Behold, I am coming quickly. If I die today, will the Lord come quickly? He probably will, but I won't know, because Noah and I will experience the same time. Noah closed his eyes, and when he opens them again, there's Jesus. I close my eyes today and Jesus comes tomorrow. There's Jesus. One day for the both of us. There's no difference in the span of time that the both of us experience. So when Jesus says, behold, I come quickly, he's speaking to people who will experience his coming. So that tells us that Philadelphia is an end time church. He says, hold that fast which you have, hold on to what you have, that nobody take your crown. So he's giving us the assurance that where he has led us thus far is what he wants us to embrace and to hang on to, because there are multitudes of people who are trying to pull us away from where the Lord has led us. And he says, be careful. Don't let anybody take your crown. The promises to Philadelphia we find in verse 12. Now, these promises in particular point to the 144,000. Look at what he says. Him that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God. That's one. I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God. Number two, I will write upon him the name of my God. Number three, I'll write upon him the name of the city of my God, which is New Jerusalem, which cometh down out of heaven from my God. And I will write upon him my new name. Promises that you wonder, what do these mean? But when you begin to look at the rest of the book of Revelation, you see with a little bit more clarity. Now, in Revelation chapter 7, let's go back to Revelation 7 and just point out something. Revelation 7, look at what it says in verses. It's verse 14. Look at what it says to Philadelphia. Him that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God. Look at what it says about those who come out of the great tribulation. It says, these are they which came out of the great tribulation. They have washed their robes, made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Therefore are they before the throne of God, and serve him day and night in his temple. It does not say that they go no more out of his temple, but if they serve him day and night, when will they leave the temple? It's the same thing as saying, I will make this person a pillar in the temple of my God. Somebody will ask me, does it mean literally that they are going to be standing in a temple or sitting in a temple day and night forever? And I don't think we should be at the place right now where we are thinking that kind of way. You know, it says something in Revelation 21. Let me just go there quickly for those of you who might be a little bit troubled. But in Revelation 21, look what it says in verse 22. And I saw no temple therein, for the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are the temple of it. Now, I would like to be a pillar in that temple, wouldn't you? And I would like to be in that temple and to go no more out, wouldn't you? This is talking about some kind of special relationship that these people have with Jesus and with God. They serve him day and night in his temple. Some kind of deeper meaning to what is being said here. But if you think it means that you're just going to go and stand in a building night and day, you are still living in Old Testament times. Or it would mean that that is what is happening. Okay? He shall go no more out. I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go no more out. You will be a permanent fixture in this temple. And look here, the point I'm making, brothers and sisters, is what gives you this privilege? It is the open door. We're talking about Philadelphia's open door. We need to understand what is implied by this open door, because it is the open door to this opportunity. This is the benefits of stepping through that open door. I will write upon him the name of my God. And again, we go quickly to Revelation 14, and you see the promise fulfilled. I saw 144,000 having his father's name written in their foreheads. The name of my God, my new name. It also says the name of the city of my God, New Jerusalem, which cometh down from. Anyway, the point I want to make is that it is clear who are these who have his father's name written in their foreheads. It's the 144,000. So the people who are described here in Revelation 3, this Philadelphia church, this is a church of the 144,000. This is a church of the 144,000. Now, how do they come to be a part of the 144,000? Let's go back and see. Let's go back and see what is the key thing. Remember, there are many living in this time who claim to be a part of the synagogue of Christ. But Jesus says there are some who are of the synagogue of Satan. What is it that sets these people apart? And look at what he says again. I have set before thee an open door. This is the key. If we are able to step through that open door and understand its implications, this is the key to the experience of the 144,000. Now, when we go to actually Revelation 14, let me bring that up on the left side of my screen so we're kind of consistent. When you go to Revelation 14, who are these people? We can see clearly that is the 144,000. But what is the experience that they're having? When you go to Revelation 4, you find that John is taken into heaven and he sees a throne set in heaven, and one is sitting on the throne, which is the Lord God Almighty. And you see the 24 elders sitting around the throne, and you see the sea of glass, and you see the 4 living creatures, the 4 beasts full of eyes round about and behind. And this is what is happening in Revelation 4. This is a door that John has been taken through. But as I said, we are not taken to heaven to find out about the geography of heaven. And we are not taken to heaven at any point in time. We are taken to heaven at a certain point in time, sometime in the future. Because the voice said to John, I will show you things that must be hereafter or after this. So we are looking at something future to the time of John. And what is this thing in Revelation? Look at Revelation 5. I saw in the right hand of him that sat on the throne a book written within and on the backside sealed with 7 seals. Now this book is so important that when the question is asked, who is worthy to open the book and to loose the seals thereof? And when nobody can open the book, John says, I wept much. John starts to bawl because nobody can open the book. Because something, why is John crying? He doesn't know what this is about. Why is he crying? The Spirit of God puts a deep sadness upon John and he starts to cry. That's how it happens. God puts it on you and you cry. He doesn't even know why he's crying, but he realizes that this is a great tragedy that no man can open the book. And finally, he finds that the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has prevailed to open the book and to loose the seals thereof. And when Jesus takes the seal, when he took the book out of the right hand of him that sat on the throne, everybody in heaven started to rejoice. Brothers and sisters, the open door is the open door to the experience of what is taking place when the book is open. And all those of you who have been a part of this fellowship, you know it applies to the judgment of the kingdom of Christ. I won't attempt to even give a synopsis of this right now, but we have all been through this over the past few months, and I am emphasizing it because it keeps coming back over and over. This is God's work for this time, and out of this is to appear the beauty of the 144,000. Now let me go on to just say the final thing about this 144,000. It says of them that they have washed their robes and they have made them white in the blood of the Lamb. In Revelation 7, let's just look at that very quickly. It says they have come out of the great tribulation. These are the ones who have come out of the great tribulation and they have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. All of us understand that the robe represents righteous character. In Isaiah 61, it says in verse 10, I will greatly rejoice in the Lord. My soul shall be joyful in my God, for he has clothed me with the garments of salvation. He has covered me with the robe of righteousness, as a bridegroom decketh himself with ornaments, and as a bride adorneth herself with jewels. So God has put on the robe of salvation, which is the robe of righteousness. Okay, that's what the robes represent. But in Revelation 7, it does not say he has put on the robes. It says they have washed their robes, because this represents an experience where they are involved in the process. Everybody who becomes a Christian is given a white robe. Everybody. In the story of the prodigal son, when the son comes back home, the father puts the robe around him. You don't have to be involved in anything but to accept the Father's goodness. The robe of Christ's righteousness is put around you, and you are fit for salvation. You are fit for heaven. You are ready for heaven. But this is not what the 144,000 go through. This is talking about something more than simply having a robe put around you, because it says they wash their robes. They go through a process while they are still alive. The closest thing I can find to it in the writings of Paul, in Ephesians 5, look at what Paul says in verses 26 and 27. Paul says, Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it. That's salvation. That's how we are saved. But it goes on, that he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word, that he might present it to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that it should be holy and without blemish. This seems to refer to or to focus on a process, an experience that it passes through of constant purification, not in order to be saved, but in order to be a fit bride for Christ, in order to glorify God, in order to be a tool that God can use in the world to vindicate his name. The difference between receiving the robe and having washed the robe is the experience we pass through. Now, it is true that it is Jesus who does the washing, because it says he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word. But even though Jesus does the washing, we are said to wash our robes because we make ourselves available to Christ to be washed. In Revelation 3 and verse 18, this is what Jesus says to Laodicea, the church that is lost. This is what he says to Laodicea. I counsel thee to buy of me. We have something to do. Buy of me. Laodicea does not buy the gold tried in the fire. Laodicea does not buy the white raiment that she might be clothed. Laodicea does not anoint her eyes with eye salve that she may see. So when it says that the 144,000 wash their robes, it means that they have gone through the process. They have come to Jesus and they have made themselves available. They have understood and listened to what he has to say. They come with nothing of their own and they have made themselves available that he could do the work in them. And I'll tell you something, brothers and sisters, the work that Christ does in us is not always easy, but it is always good. And at the end, if we understand it, it is pleasant in a way. When God gave us a preview of this in the book of Malachi, look at what he says. And I do believe that this has application to what we are talking about. He says, behold, I will send my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before me. And the Lord whom you seek shall suddenly come to his temple. Even the messenger of the covenant whom you delight in, behold, he shall come, said the Lord of hosts. Now, this has a partial application to the first coming of Jesus and to John being his messenger. But you can clearly see that it also applies in a greater way to his second coming. Because look what it says. But who may abide the day of his coming? And who shall stand when he appeareth? For he is like a refiner's fire and like fuller's soap. And he shall sit as a refiner and a purifier of silver. And he shall purify the sons of Levi and purge them as gold and silver, that they may offer unto the Lord an offering in righteousness. It's talking about an experience of purging, of purification, of cleansing. And this is what God does to this last day people of whom you and I hope, are going to be a part. I'll read one last thought and then I'm going to close off. They wash their robes in the blood of the Lamb. What is washing? Let's just consider this. Washing is the application of a cleansing agent, like soap, maybe, bleach, maybe. It stings and it burns, but it cleanses. It creates uncomfortable circumstances. It involves, especially how they used to wash in the old days with a scrubbing board and a scrubbing brush. It involves beating, scouring, scrubbing, during which the dirt which has become ingrained in the fabric is gradually separated and carried away by the water. All of this is involved in washing. When Jesus says, I will wash you, it doesn't mean it's going to be a bed of roses or a pleasant process. But I want to remind you of what he said to the Apostle Paul. Paul says, there was given to him a thorn in the flesh, the messenger of Satan to buffet him. Satan brought something upon Paul. You know what God did? God took Satan's tool and turned it around and made it into something useful. He turned the way of the wicked upside down. Because when Paul was praying and saying, Lord, this is hard, please take this from me. You know what the Lord says? My strength is made perfect in weakness. Paul, I want your strength to be perfect. Paul, I want it to be something beautiful. I want it to be a useful tool in my hand. And what I'm using to do this is the agent of Satan that has been sent into your life. I'm using this to make you into what I want you to be. And so God says this is what he will do for us today. And this is what he's going to do supremely through the final great tribulation. We, brothers and sisters, have the privilege of following the Lamb wherever he goes, not just someday in the future, but here and now, today, as we submit ourselves to him, as we receive from him the gold tried in the fire, the white raiment, and as we anoint our eyes with eye salve so we can see. Thank you, everyone, for listening so attentively. I hope we take to heart what I've been trying to say. I hope I take it to heart. By God's grace, if the Lord does not put me to sleep before the time, I would really love to be among that group that will vindicate and glorify his name. So, God help all of us that we may cooperate with him in accomplishing his purposes. Thank you very much.